Hello, this is Vijay Rana from India Briefings in London. It has been more than a year now. Here we are in April 2021. The scourge of coronavirus is continuing to devastate many lives across the world. There seems to be no end to this pandemic. India is having more than 300,000 cases a day and approximately 1,600 deaths per day. And the countries like America, Brazil, France, and Italy are still struggling to control the situation. Despite the availability of many vaccines, the situation is still out of control. To discuss the current situation and the nature of this deadly coronavirus, I have with me a leading scientist, Dr. Srinivasa K from New York. He got his PhD from the University of Paris. He did his biomedical research and taught at City University of New York. He worked for many years in the vaccine industry, and at present, he is actively involved in a global movement called Food as Medicine. Dr. Rao, let's talk about the origins of coronavirus. What do we know about it so far?
This virus is from the bats, and mostly these bats are from China. And Dr. Zhangli Shi has been working on these viruses for a long time. And she also did her studies in United States before she became a researcher, well-established researcher in China. In 2015, Dr. Ralph Barrick from North Carolina University and his team, Dr. Vineet Jamanchari, published a paper saying clearly that bat coronavirus of a particular type can actually infect human cells. They have done those modifications, what is called in the scientific terms as chimeric, which means constructed virus, can actually infect human cells. Their idea is to show that in future, if a virus gets into human cells, they can study what it does, how bad it is, and how to defend ourselves by making vaccines or medicines. This is called gain of function research. And this gain of function research was done or is being done in the last decade very well. And when President Barack Obama became the president of the United States, 100 scientists signed and said that this research must be stopped. Yet, behind the president's orders, this research continued. The funding went to not only to Ralph Barrick in North Carolina, but also to Zhangli Shi in China, Wuhan Research Institute. So the main question is, they have shown that a coronavirus can infect human cells, and that infection mechanism is also established through the ACE receptors. But they claim that has nothing to do with this present coronavirus. Dr. Zhangli Shi, in the last few years, until recently, has been actively working on this kind of virus. This kind of virus means that a virus that can infect human cells. So these labs are at a very high level labs. They are called P3 labs. And this P3 lab was constructed for Chinese by a French company. So everything happened in China did not happen in isolation. Definitely the American scientists, they know very well. French, they know very well. And the American embassy visited these labs and warned several times, at least 2 instances were reported to the Office of Science, to the President's office, that there are lapses and they have to be controlled. The reason why it has gone to that level was when such viruses escape these labs, they can cause a problem.
And the situation is that nobody is sure whether it leaked from the lab or it originated from bats. Nobody is sure what is the exact situation.
Yes, China initially claimed that it has come from the meat market in Wuhan, which is roughly 5 kilometers from the lab where the research has been going on. And the world tried to believe, and WHO wanted us all to believe that. But in the following months, it all became very unbelievable. Number one, all cases in China were not related to the meat market. Number two, they could not show any single place in the meat, any single meat in the meat market that is the secondary host for the virus. Third, the bats on the coronavirus were far away from Wuhan city, and therefore the chances of those viruses constantly getting in contact with the meats that are being sold in Wuhan meat market is extremely negligible. Third, the virus and its disease pattern appeared in November 2019 itself. Somehow, the Chinese authorities report that it started in December from the meat market. And the most serious thing is Dr. Zhang Shi, when she came to know about this, while she is away in a meeting, her boss called, asked her to come back. She said, I hope it is not from my lab. So that sentence is probably an error.
So how credible is this WHO report?
WHO report is not to be believed so easily because they have not asked people who are not concerned with this, who are not party to this, to be on the committee and independently come out with the questioning. They have taken the people who were funded for this research, which is not correct. If you are funded for the gain of function research, and you ask them to show whether this is a leak, whether it's a bad thing, right thing, wrong thing, why would they and how would they show? If they are the scientists of that sort who are genuine, because I don't blame all the scientists, I'm also a scientist, they should have stopped the gain of function research back when Obama's administration said stop it. They did not. People have all over the world, scientists and common people, have a doubt. I genuinely believe that this should be tested first. Every lab, whether it is in America or in Wuhan, in North Carolina or in Wuhan, they have the sequence of those early strains. They should publish those sequences openly to compare with the sequences of the virus that is causing the pandemic. When these two are compared by third party genuinely, then it will be established whether it has naturally occurred or whether it's a leak from the lab or whether it is an accident or whether it is in ignorance will be known beyond doubt. If it is naturally occurring, that is much more dangerous for the world. We should find out the root of natural occurrence and stop it, avoid it, be aware of it, even though we can't stop it maybe if it is natural. So that's what in my article, I clearly mentioned the sequence of the initial coronavirus SARS-CoV-2 as published by the Chinese themselves should be compared with all the known sequences that were used in the experiments and show beyond doubt that none of the experimental sequences are matching to this. Then everybody can believe that this is not a man-made accident. Until then, we have no choice but to believe it may have happened that way.
So what can governments of hugely populated countries like India do to control the situation?
When you have a lot of population, the awareness is the most important key factor. Elmhurst, the epicenter of coronavirus pandemic last year, is just 11 miles from my house. And it was spreading very well in all the zip codes or the surrounding areas to my zip code as well. So New York City has done, what New York City has done is they have asked the community-based organizations to let their teams go into the community, set up a table in street corners and explain all the details to every single one in all the languages. For example, I'm a consultant to one of the CBOs called India Home for the past 1 year, where we constantly, every day, have people on the street, even in the weekends, to explain, give mass, test, trace, advise. And now we are talking about vaccines. At that time, there was no vaccine, so we were talking about only test and tracing. Such volunteer organizations, there are thousands in India. All of them have to be on the street and tell everyone. Doesn't mean that you can enforce it, but in the red zones where the infection percentage is more than 10, government has to take strict action. Every single place in New York City was fined if they had more people. If they have violated these things, they have to be so strict. When you have a lot of people, it doesn't mean it's not easy, but it is difficult to control. You have enormous amount of police force. You have enormous amount of military operational style is required in this kind. Why is the military there in the country? To protect people from invasions and killings. And here it is not a known enemy. It is an unknown virus as an enemy. And the strategy must be the same, in my opinion, though I'm not from military. It has to be that strict.
So the moral of the story is that it's not going to go away soon. We have to learn to live with it, and we all have to have COVID appropriate behavior. Dr. Srinivasa Rao, thank you very much indeed.